Well, here we are, live for yet another week, yet another Bogus Hangout. And it's obviously the summertime show, because, you know, look, we're all in T-shirts, bright colours, apart from Jen. Jen, well done, you're keeping up the IT look black. So, let's get straight in, and we'll kick off in our traditional fashion. Bill, what have you been up to this week? How did your meetup go?
Meetup went really well. Really happy about it. Learned a lot, new stuff. Been going to some other meetups recently too with the Lean Startup Group breakfast meetup on Wednesdays, and they're Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock. So that starts the day off a little bit differently. You know, it's at a coffee house, so coffee isn't bad, but it does feel kind of odd not being at work at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's quite late for a breakfast group. Usually those things are sort of 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock over here. So that, you know, you're all done and then go to work.
Right. I'm not sure why they do it this way. I guess they think everybody who's involved is starting up business and doesn't have another job otherwise.
Possibly, yeah. Or you know, there's lots of IT people for whom anything before midday is like hideously early. It's an odd one, isn't it? Because the idea of a breakfast meetup is that you get together and share breakfast, and obviously for most people that's going to be earlier than they're supposed to be at work.
Right.
Well, I'm going to post the link in the event so that anybody that wants to jump in and join this week can do so. It's brilliant to see several people that don't usually catch us live. I just saw Gina's there. Anton is in the audience, so anybody that wants to jump in, go ahead. We are on a sort of free-for-all week. Let's see who else we've got. Of course, we have Kristin with us. Kristin, how's your week been?
Great.
It took you longer to unmute than to answer. You know that.
Yeah. I've been training interns.
Jen, good to have you back. What have you been up to this week?
I have been lots and lots of writing and getting lots and lots of runaround from Dell on my big laptop misadventure.
Yes. Tell us all about it on video.
Basically, I was buying a new top-of-the-end laptop for my trip coming up, and through the whole process, yes, promise this date, give them my credit card number, oh, sorry, it's going to be a week later. And since, I think we're 6 days now, I've been getting the runaround from Dell on when exactly, like they won't let me cancel it now, even though the salesperson told me I could, and they won't expedite it, and so now I'm stuck with them attempting, or they're telling me they're going to deliver a laptop, even though they know I'm out of the country, so good times.
Yes, yes, and I bet you're delighted with the amazing customer service you've been receiving.
Oh yes, I haven't had a single response from anyone at Dell, despite repeated promises. Oh, we'll get back to you tomorrow. Oh, we'll get back to you by end of day today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, classic. And Frank doesn't often join us here, but of course we all know him from the dojo. Frank, good to have you here.
Thanks, man.
What are you been up to?
I'm working on a website. I've got up to 10,000 pages so far, and I'm just about to launch it.
Cool.
So, should be fun. I want to do a lot with schema on it, so largely being created by PHP, so I can go in and change what the content is on the site based on tweaks I'm making in the PHP.
Nice.
Should be fun. Yeah.
I must admit, it's sometimes fun to get a brand new big site to work on, but of course these days that happens more and more anyway, because for so long the advice has been, oh, add more content, oh, you should add a blog, oh, you should add this, and so sites generally that have been around for a couple of years are massive.
Definitely.
In fact, I'd say it's the biggest change I've been seeing in SEO for me the last few years. Is that more often than not, my first advice has to be, actually, you need a smaller site. You've actually built up so much content and so few links that there just isn't that much juice around the site, and you're diluting it.
That's good. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that part of it, and it definitely happens that way, and especially it's been like the last 3 or 4 years. Everyone's been talking about how content's the important thing, so that's why all these things are built out. You know, I've written a lot of content for a lot of different places, and it gets to that saturation point where there's just very little difference between 5 or 6 of the exact same things. You're just talking a little bit differently, and yet
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we all said. Content.
So, Bill, Jen, I mean, do you find that similar things for some of your clients where the sites are just much bigger than they've got the importance to get spidered?
Yeah, I also find there's a lot more clients that think that bigger is better when that's not necessarily the case. They always want to get more and more pages indexed, but don't realize that, one, they're diluting what they do have that's really good. And yeah, that's the biggest thing I find. You know, bigger isn't better. You need to have the best of the best, really.
And it seems like most people feel there's an endless supply of links on the web. Okay, so they're written in digital ink, so that's possible, but that may not be the best way to think about it. It can be challenging sometimes. It can take a lot of work and creativity to attract new links to your site.
Yes, it's one of those things that is more and more often a thing I have to advise clients these days is, look, most of you have been around long enough that you need to do a content audit reasonably regularly, where you need to, for some companies it's every 3 months, for some companies it's 6. I'd say nobody is so small they shouldn't be doing it every year, but at the end of each year, audit your content. Look at what has got links, what has got some results, what's got stuff going, and what can maybe be pruned away, or where 2 or 3 different things can be combined into one and one URL. And that way you can help control the crawl budget, the amount of crawl that's needed to get your whole site, because I am seeing so many sites that are just bigger than the amount they're going to get indexed regularly, at least freshly.
We usually start most clients off in SEO campaigns with the content inventory to get a sense of what they have, what exists, to be able to present it in a spreadsheet that makes it easy to see everything that is on the site and which keywords they may be targeting.
Yep. I'm just checking what's going on Twitter to see if Darren Maloney is jumping in with us this week. I haven't seen him yet, so nothing going on there. I must admit, my week this week has been one of those ones where I've kind of been running around. It seems to be client meeting, conference call, client meeting. Oh, sorry, we can't make that one. And rearranging the meetings is taking almost as much time as actually having the meetings. Don't get me wrong, I love client meetings, I love conference calls, but sometimes, my goodness, getting them to actually happen, getting them to happen on time can be a real pain. You know, it's not just Hangouts where these issues come up, where one person can't get video and somebody else can't get sound, and face-to-face still has its advantages. Can you imagine if real-life meetings were like virtual ones? You know, where one person keeps moving their mouth and nothing comes out.
I think I've been to a few like that.
Yeah, haven't we all?
Yeah.
I must admit, I remember one where actually the marketing director was a really nice guy, but there was this sort of junior, and every time he opened his mouth, his lips were moving, but nothing sensible was coming out. I did wonder if there was a connection problem there. I'm not sure his mouth was connected to what it was supposed to be. I won't mention the company, of course. Good to see that Imran is tuned in. Janet, yes, I think one of those might jump on my back, except in this video, I'm down the bottom taking them off, helping them down. We also have Dave Pipe, of course. Good to have Dave here. If anybody's not following Dave, he is so useful to anyone that runs Hangouts because he lets you know when Chrome updates, which it does often, and it just warns you to check your settings, make sure that that hasn't all gone. We used to get this thing where every time you'd go to open a Hangout, if you hadn't done one for a couple of days, half your settings had gone, half the things it was supposed to have remembered it wouldn't, and they'd have updated several of the little sidebar apps and plugins and.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've recently been using Hangouts out of Slack because I've got these, startup things going on, and that's been interesting. It works pretty consistently. Have any of you used it out of Slack yet? Or
Long time.
think you ever will?
Yeah, once with Slack. Most of the time I use Skype, I must admit, because it's been around so long. Everyone's got Skype.
Yeah.
I like Skype, but like when you're on a team, like you pretty much do what the head guy says. So we're trying to integrate everyone into like one central location. Slack's pretty helpful for that.
It's a good way of keeping the team working as a team.
Mm.
Do you know what though? I still like email.
Yeah.
I do. I still like email, and it's one of those things that I think is getting underused sometimes. People are looking for the apps, when actually a lot of these conversations, group email works just as well. Except there's always one person that just forgets and clicks reply instead of reply all, isn't there? There's always the one.
Yeah, like we have our social listening apps like Tuned In, like Google Alerts, Social Mention, or Mention, a long time ago, Social Mention. Talkwalker is a big one. We found a way to push all of those into one of the channels in Slack, but it doesn't work like perfectly, and so we're all still using our Gmail. Still.
Yeah.
Like oldie but goodie, and hopefully never goes away because it's solid.
Well, exactly that. It's not like there's ever going to be a day where I don't open my email. I can go weeks sometimes without opening Skype. If I don't have any specific client calls to do, it doesn't get opened. I put Skype on for work. I close it the rest of the time because otherwise it is such a distraction.
Yeah.
It's like Twitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ask
Bill,
anyone in the dojo.
Bill, I know you've got quite a sort of remote working team in your company. I mean, what tools are they using to keep in touch, keep everyone on the same page?
We've started using Slack recently. We were using an application called Squiggle, which is video conferencing, and it shows everybody, but it freeze frames them, and they closed down this week, so we're no longer using that. So it's kind of sad to see that they stopped developing. They just stopped completely.
Yeah.
That happened to like Catch too. Like I've seen like several kind of like different startups that have tanked recently, and it's really sad to see that, because you think about, like, there are people who were working on this and they were planning on it going somewhere. You just wonder, like, what's in their future.
I must admit, you know, that's always a fact of business, regardless. You know, I've said before that 95% of businesses that start up fail within their first 5 years, without ever making back the expense of those 5 years. It's a sad statistic, but unfortunately it's there. It's kind of, you know, the cruel and bloody side of business evolution. Survival of the fittest means a lot of not quite the fittest fall by the wayside. And, it ideally leads to the strongest and best businesses going forward. Sometimes that's not always the case. There are times when, you know, whoever's got the deepest pockets as a backer can outlast everyone else. There are some dirty tricks in business.
It also depends how much they're burning through their cash, too. Like, you don't need to have every employee with 3 monitors and the latest Mac and the Herman Miller chairs and all the free food. And so, like, I see a lot of startups, they have this thing where we have to be like Google and give all our employees all this stuff. Meanwhile, they've burnt through so much cash that they run out and they can't get more, and they are, it's like you said, they're not quite the survival of the fittest, and there's someone else who's going to come along and be the one.
There's a reason why Right Tag has a model of using interns, and it's kind of for that reason, so that, because, like, after it's like you get a 3-month internship, and you can, like, get a recommendation after that. And we've had several of them that have gone on to work, like, for pretty big companies. Like, one's gonna be starting with Google, like, any day now. And, like, that's awesome. But do they ever get paid? No. They got paid in their awesome recommendation. And, like, that's sometimes payment enough. Like, if it can jumpstart you from one place to another because you've gotten some awesome experience and leadership, then that's something that you didn't have anywhere else. Like, you didn't have, you know what I mean?
It's one of those questionable ones. Where you get an internship and it would otherwise, there are some things that you need to learn, and rather than paying to learn, you can pay in sweat equity. You can be an intern and learn that way, and that is always a real good bargain. It's simply an alternative for cash. You're putting in your time instead of your cash to learn a skill. Unfortunately for the business, it always makes sense, and there's a hint of the tragedy of the commons where businesses get people in for free labour as interns, don't have as much time training them as they should because they're too busy using them for free labour. And
churn and burn through them too.
And I think there are far too many companies who
take total advantage of it.
Depends on free labour, and that's not sustainable. It will hurt your business in the long run if you haven't built it up to pay its way.
Yeah,
I don't know if you got. Go ahead.
Go on,
I was working at FXDM. They would hire about 80-odd interns during the summer, but they paid them. They gave them $10 an hour, which wasn't bad for them. But what they would do is, like, I would end up in the marketing department. I'd get a dozen of them, and I would create them to, do specific things that they learn. They learn about social media. They learn about content development. They learned about, the aspects of it. And the best ones that surfaced to the top were the ones that we offered part-time work while they were still at school during the school year. And that was the way that, when they did graduate, especially over on the marketing and sales side, we brought those people over, and they, they were right out of the gun. They were fresh. They were hungry. And they had creative ideas that they'd learned at school and things. And that was a good way to do that. And it was worth all the extra money, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. They get to a certain point with someone, and you have to give them a raise, and you've got to bring them up to a higher level and give them more money, and they think, oh, we can go back to the beginning and do what we did. But then all that training, you've got to do again. It's so silly how a lot of companies just don't realize that you're better off giving a $20,000 raise to an employee that is of worth than saying, oh, we can't, and they go off somewhere else, and then you're back to stage one again, and it's all your time as well that you've got to put into bringing them back up there.
Yeah.
Did you guys happen to catch Kara Wood's post that she made? It was like on the 4th, I think. Really great and really long post about like community management, and one of her points was that she feels like it's interesting how the community manager of especially like larger brands and stuff has like such a huge task at hand, yet articles written, help files, they're really not there. Like you kind of have to. There are some, but there's not a lot in comparison to some other functions of working with brands. I thought that was a really interesting point, and I totally identified with it.
Darren, you're kind of at the other part of the spectrum at the moment, where you'd love to expand further, but it's not the expense of the employees, it's the expense of finding the time to develop those employees and bring them in-house and get things going, isn't it? Which is, I think, something that most small agencies will struggle with, and solopreneurs, when they first expand, will struggle with.
Yeah. It's not easy. Hi everyone. We took our 7th member of staff on 2 weeks ago, and he's come on quite well, but he's completely new. But we pay them, and we don't do unpaid internships. I don't like people working for free, because even though they're going to get the benefit, they're also benefiting my business by generating revenue, which is going to be profitable for us as a company. So I feel that they should get a reward, even if they are learning. But yeah, it is difficult trying to grow and get the right people. Oh, bash.
One of the things I'd say, Darren, is don't be afraid to offer some part-time jobs to people who are going through uni, though, where they're not expecting a wage. They really do need to have a little bit of experience under their belt, and the chance to work for something good rather than something dull is its own payment in a way. If you're paying their fares and getting them lunch, they're going to be quite happy with that, some of them.
Mate, is that?
Oh, we lost him. Sorry, Darren, I was saying, don't be afraid to check out the local unis and offer some part-time work. Either a couple of half days a week or 1 day a week internship, where they're not expecting huge amounts of money. Pay their lunch, pay their fares, and they're going to be happy with that. It helps them get a job later, because these days just having the qualifications isn't enough. People want to see what work experience you've got as well.
Yeah.
And was that all your interns rolling behind you in your picture? Sorry,
Frank, can you say that again?
That picture that you have behind you, is that all your interns wheeling down the stairs?
Actually, that's the 95% of small businesses on a sad downward trend, but having such fun getting there. It is one of those.
Would you say taking on interns, you'd get them with, what would you say? I mean, we look for people that they're doing marketing studies, if you like, but someone with a computer science or someone studying business studies, which one do you think is best? I mean, what's your experience?
One of the things I love about marketing is that there are so many different disciplines to it. And after all, we are attempting to reach all people. So almost anybody can be used at some part of a marketing company. I used to particularly like the English students who maybe haven't quite worked out that, you know, a degree in English isn't going to qualify them for very much whatsoever these days. You know, it's one of those ones, if you need a degree and the job doesn't specify what, it just wants degree level candidates, well, it's going to count for that. But a degree on its own, even a librarian can't get by with just an English degree these days.
Okay.
And you know, the qualifications to be a librarian are actually quite strict. You'd be surprised. So they are going to be the people who probably will end up copywriting. And right now, they've got the skill, they've got the passion for language, so they can be exceptionally useful for helping clients with content.
Yeah.
And for grammar checking.
I found people with a math background, because they understand statistics and things like that, are pretty good. You know, you want a sharp person. Part of that interview process is seeing how well they engage. But someone that has a math background that, you know, is using that whole sort of, he sees the world in numbers, can really be structured into doing some really successful work as far as marketing goes, because they understand that conversion thing.
Good point.
The best interns that we get coming in, well, I think they are the best ones, are the ones who understand statistics, because I like learning from them, for one thing. But yeah, they're very sharp, and they understand logic. It's my finding anyhow.
Yeah, it's one of those things. One thing I found quite useful when looking at potential interns is generate some of reports and some of your work, because you're going to want to explain to them exactly what they're getting into anyway. But you can usually see which bit catches their attention, which bit lights them up, and that already gives you an idea of what they might like to do and therefore hopefully be good at. But if all else fails, you know, just somebody to make the coffee helps.
Yeah, we've got one of those. It's me.
Exactly. Your time is supposed to be spent elsewhere. So, you know, anybody who can take almost any load off of your shoulders is adding to productivity, because it's helping you spend that time where it's most efficient for the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still, it's been noted in the business I still work in a bubble. So that has to change.
Yeah.
Who pointed that out?
My wife.
The MD.
The MD, the CEO. And that was said last Friday, yeah, that I work in a bubble with my own clients. So I am starting to hand them over to my team, but it's hard to let go because they're all working in the office, whereas my thing is I drive 50 miles to go and work at the clients for the day, because I see the internals of the business a lot better, and B, it's much more fun. But that has to change. So, and I'm not keen on letting go yet.
One company, there was an intern. We all liked their personality, but they really did struggle with a lot of the work. You know, it was almost a bit of a loss for a while, until we realised that, of course, they were absolutely perfect. For one thing, they got on with everybody, and what we did was we used them to help schedule all the meetings that we needed to have and get us all on the same, and they excelled in that. Human resources was their skill, and sometimes, of course, in something as technical as SEO, you kind of forget that. You know, the human side of a lot of things. Yeah, you know, we understand the human side of selling, but if somebody isn't doing copy and they're not doing sales calls, we kind of don't think of humanity in any other respect. And actually, yeah, just organising the meetings, taking that bit off of everybody's plate was so useful, and, you know, great for all concerned. Yeah, go on. Speak of students and training. Tell us more, Kristin.
Okay. I put in to the side chat for anyone who's watching a link to Imran's. His new site is live, and to his AdWords training for students section. So I'll put that in the event for everyone to follow along.
Excuse us, audience, while we all study this song.
Yes. That's great.
If there's anyone out there that doesn't know Imran, do check this stuff out. He worked for Google for quite some time. There is really not many people with any more possible in-depth knowledge of the advertising side of search, and believe me, it's one of those things. It's a bit like we were just talking about with interns. There are businesses who try and get by without investing in anything, and it's not necessarily sustainable. I've seen so many businesses who their entire ethos is that, you know, free traffic must be gained. Well, if you're one of the people that watches this show regularly, you'll know there is no such thing as free traffic. It's a bit like those internships. You may not pay for it with cash, but you're going to pay for it with a lot of sweat equity. So you really do need to throw away that idea of free traffic entirely and understand if you're not paying for it one way, you're paying for it another. If you cannot make AdWords work for you, then the chances are you won't make SEO work for you either, because you won't have the budget. The budget is going to be time, and time is money. If you couldn't, you know, spend that time that you're spending on SEO doing something that would pay more and pay enough for an AdWord campaign, then maybe your business isn't as strong as it should be. Anyone else have any thoughts on, you know, the underside of search? Because I do find there's still so many people who, you know, free traffic mentality is their thing.
I find it a lot, especially with small companies that we deal with. They seem to just think they spent 1,200 quid with a website, maybe £2,000. Why aren't they competing with the site? And the best I had was I want to be #1 for pensions. This was an independent financial advisor, and I said, how much do you want to spend? And he said £30, and I thought, what, per click? And he said, no, per month.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do get this. I've got a website, therefore I should be deserving of free traffic.
It's one of those ones where, I mean, the perfect thing for those is to point out every company I know in that sector is paying at least £200 per lead for clients. So they can afford quite easily, you know, £100 a conversion on pay-per-click with no problem at all. They will buy as much of that as they can get, and most of them are. Most of them are spending 6 figures a month. Jen, pay-per-click, what do you think?
I still think there's a lot of people that are doing the blind leading the blind and don't understand what they're doing with it, or else they think that, oh my god, I'm not going to pay $30 a click. Are they crazy? And don't realize that if they aren't getting that organic traffic, that pay-per-click's a good option, but it can be pretty pricey these days.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get sticker shock.
The flip side is I do see people paying for terms they should. You know, you should not be paying for your brand name. If you have to pay for your brand name, something is very, very, very wrong.
Well, I can't remember. Someone did a study recently, and it showed, or maybe it was actually WordStream maybe. Someone did a study on it and showed like the brand lift you get when you do both, when you pay for your name as well. Because what's happened is if you don't bid on your name, if you bid on your name, you're going to automatically get the first AdWords position for your brand name, no doubt about it. But if you don't bid on it, you can have 4 competitors now showing above you in the search results if you're not bidding on your brand name. And so I think the cannibalization of people who would click the AdWords over the organic is something like 30%, but your overall return is far better than that. Like, you get more traffic overall.
Okay, is this a new study? Because I've seen something like this years ago.
This was something, it was at a conference recently, and so I'm sure I tweeted about it, but I can't remember who it was.
Those reports have been out there, and they've been predominantly, and this has been out there for 10 plus years, predominantly been done by people in the paid search space that, you use that to warrant the spend against brand names. There's a really good conversation over the last week to 10 days in the webmaster world where a guy added in his brand, and all of a sudden the click-through rate, because he was ranking number 1 on organic, was about 35%, dropped down to 15. And he was getting a certain amount of it, but not all of it, in pure numbers of clicks from the paid search. So he was actually losing overall. Yeah, I've always, I've done more misspells for brand names, which has been pretty successful because if they're misspelling the brand name, it's usually going into another industry that's not there. So you're getting those clicks for 5 cents versus $1. And they convert really well, etc. But yeah, I work with a lot of companies on paid search, and I tell them, yeah, if you're ranking number 1 for your name, which you should be, and 2 and 3, or 3 or 4 places in your organic results, unless, like Jen was saying, competitors come in. But then, if you're the big enough dog, you just go and take up their brand names and say, okay, guys, and this is what I did at FXM. I'm going hey, I'll drop them when you drop doing it for ours. If you're the bigger one, it's the smart play, because they're going to ride off of you more than you're riding off of them. But it's a way to sort of level the playing field.
There have been a lot of these studies done on, oh yes, if you pay as well as have the organic, you get an uplift. If you look, every single one of those studies is from a company that makes money from you doing pay-per-click.
Right.
There has never been an organic-only company that's found the same thing. So yeah, I'm absolutely certain that somebody like Larry Kim will tell you that doing pay-per-click as well will give an uplift. It's one of those things. Look, it will put you guaranteed top position, but you should be there for your brand anyway. If you've got both, you can get clicks on both. Sometimes, yes, you can. People sometimes click again just to see if it's a slightly different page. The level of the average person's understanding of the net, their ability to look at a URL and recognize that it's the same one, isn't always there. I'd say that 20% of the ordinary population can't do that. So sometimes, yes, they will click on both. It's still one customer. It's still one person. You've now paid for them and had them come back and bounce. If you were to believe Larry Kim on click-through signals, you've just created a bounce and undone yourself on your organic because your pay-per-click had just done this. Bill, you look like you got something to say. And then Imran, I know this is your ballpark.
I was going to say, I think with a knowledge panel these days, you have another chance to get seen again at the top of search results. And if you're not taking advantage of that, you should be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Imran.
Hi. I was just listening in to the conversation about AdWords, and I think one of the reasons I joined was a very broad opinion of what AdWords is. And I think over the last 10 years, a lot of things have changed in AdWords. A lot of people have not learned what's been changing, been intimidated by the size of AdWords, not really being provided with any actionable insights to make it easy to understand the difference between SEO and AdWords. And it's only now that all the data guys are coming about and learning it. But in the last 10 years, AdWords has changed so much. So if I was to compare SEO and PPC, Google provides a report. You link up your search console and AdWords, and you can compare the difference between your organic versus AdWords, even when you appear 2 times for the same result. Away from that, with the AdWords ad, Google has added so many ad extensions, whether it be site links, a click to call, a click to locate. You're not getting any of that on your SEO. Unless you're smart with all your knowledge graph and so on, to have, even on a brand name, I think someone was talking about brand names. If I had a choice, my brand name costs next to nothing, but I was able to give a user a richer result, control the site links very easily, give them a click to call, click to locate. I'd prefer the AdWords ad over an organic listing, even though I understand the benefit of both and can compare them later on with the reports. Away from all of that, I think with PPC, everybody forgets, and I shouldn't say PPC, AdWords actually, it's not about new customers all the time. Now we're going towards a model where the offline guys are saying, oh no, how do I pay my overheads? My online store is just outspent, it's just outdone my offline store. What do I do? How do I connect the two? There's people online saying, well, buyers aren't just buying anymore. There's no such thing as impulse buy, really, because people are going to press the back button and Google you, try find reviews and so on. So how do you now start engaging with customers and bringing them back to your site? Facebook came out, and what I find strange, I might be talking a bit too much here, guys, but tell me when to shut up whenever. What the biggest struggle with Facebook is, and where they win this best, is the simplicity in setup and simplicity in getting a campaign running in 5-10 minutes. I remember working and in my last job, and that was a big concern. You know, people went from saying, you know, like, we want to spend 100,000 a week to no, actually we want to check out Facebook as well. And we were then, what Facebook? Last year, what I saw the most was people becoming more educated about marketing just because of Facebook, launching things like remarketing and so on. In AdWords, we've been we pretty much will get a person from the search engine, remarket to them on an app, with an app. We'll get everyone who's downloaded an app and upload their IDs to AdWords and track them, bring them onto a YouTube channel. We can start inboxing people. So we can get a competitor's phone number, put it in as a keyword into a Gmail campaign, inbox people with an email saying, come to our site. So much we can do, yet everybody persists to talk about search, which is the most powerful network, but I think it's not the most affordable opportunity for a lot of businesses looking at the bigger picture, which is engagement, loyalty, bringing people back. But I guess that was my 2 pence worth there. Throwing it all out there. What do you think?
Well, there's certainly a lot of bits. I know Jen was the first to comment, and then Bill. So, Jen.
I actually did find that study. It was actually from Bing internal data. They were talking about the different sectors and how they looked at, I think it was financial services, travel services, and how much lift brands saw when they bid on their brand name as well, when they had competitors bidding on those ads, so that they were getting their brand top of the search results on ads.
Yeah. And there's bound to be a bit, but what I always found is that the conversions don't change. The clicks change. But the customer who actually wants you, who's looking for your brand, will scan through those results, and they're not going to be satisfied with somebody else's page. I've never seen anyone yet who was good enough at competing with your brand on your brand terms, at doing comparisons, to actually get any conversions from it. They always ended up at my client's site. In the end, we saw no difference in the amount of conversions when we tested this extensively over a number of sites.
Yeah, I mean, Imran's information about what the Search Console is giving now, as far as being able to differentiate where the different parts of the clicks are coming from, is phenomenal. I'm actually going to be, Jen did a really good piece. Was it today you wrote that, about the different elements that are going to be brought into the Search Console?
Yeah.
Starting to be?
Yeah.
That was a lot of detail, huh? Really good.
Yeah. John's just been talking about the changes to the way that clicks in apps and so on are counted as well. And, thankfully, I was looking at it today, and it seems like there's only one client where it's going to make a big difference to some of the numbers being reported, and therefore they've got to be given a report on how the reports are going to change before I can send them another report. For the rest of them, it's really not going to be a big deal in terms of the number changes. not for the things they're monitoring. It's only one that's using the apps extensively enough that it will be a big difference. Bill, I know you had a comment about what Imran had said about AdWords.
Yeah, Imran's comment about the fact that AdWords has changed and you have things like extended site links and so on, and the ability to use those in AdWords. I think people often fail to set their sites up to show site links well from an organic stance. It's a bit of a challenge sometimes, but it's worth taking the effort to have multiple links showing up underneath the homepage of your site as site links. And it can be done, and you can have some control over it based upon how you phrase the navigational text on your pages. And the links that tend to be clicked on the most on your homepage often tend to be the site links, unless they have a specialized function. Like on a WordPress site, the download link is, and the support link and the contact link are all things that show up for site links. And that's true with many sites. Specialized function type links on those that people might end up wanting to get to when they're...
Well, could you please explain specialized, like what you're talking about?
Okay. People often go to a site like WordPress.org to download a copy of WordPress. So it's a specialized page. It has a transactional nature. People are going to that page to do a download. Or often contact pages are pages that show up as site links because Google wants to show off these pages where people can get to the contact page really quickly. And
like a Google map, like when I do a search for Stone Temple Consulting, like the first thing I see is their address. Would that count?
When you do a search for the name of a company and Google shows the top link being the company's homepage, but then they show like 6 or so links underneath that. Those are site links. They're not always all from the same domain, but most of the time they are. And often they tend to be pages that might have some type of specialized function, like a contact page, an About Us page, a subscribe page, a download page.
Yeah.
So
Often
what would a
you may have a company-
non-specialized?
I'm sorry. Often you may have a company that's got 2 or 3 major products, and their most popular product will tend to be a site link for the home page. If you search for the brand name rather than the product name, there may also be a contact or some other form there that's been picked up as an extra link to include, because they're shortcuts. People used to be very cagey about typing. Most of us weren't. At our age, most of us didn't study typing at school. Typing was not seen as the skill in the 70s and 80s that it is today. And so there's a lot of people who are not very comfortable with keyboards. This is, again, a driver of voice search. Another is, of course, the devices. The fact that, mobiles are very awkward to type because it's one letter at a time with your thumb. It's one of those things. So a lot of the time people will use less search words than they might because it's less typing, and therefore they might just put in the brand name and they want the specific page, and by having those deep links straight away from there, Google is helping those users.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes sites fail to have site links showing up for the name of the site, and that can happen for a number of reasons. One of them is that sometimes people use text, pictures of text, as part of the navigation. And when they do that, Google can't read the text, doesn't necessarily know what it says, and isn't going to use OCR to read it and understand it. they did have a patent come out and said they might start doing that, using OCR to read those and create site links. But as far as I know, they haven't started doing that.
They did for a long time, actually. This is an old one, so I'll give this one away. But it used to be an advantage. Where I had text links, I would tend to put a small bullet point image next to them so that I could have alt text and title text on that image and embed it in the same link, because it actually gave a slight benefit. There were so many of the early menus that were generated from GIFs, made to be a neat row of buttons all the same size, that actually search engines were so used to that if you actually managed to incorporate that as well as text links, it helped. And enough so it's not one of those things I would say absolutely, oh yes, this is a ranking factor, but I did find it helped and it never harmed. And I have had image navigation before. Again, people would sometimes have the navigational images where you've got a map, and clicking on the right part of the map takes you to different things, basically an image mapping. And again, the search engines were built to handle that. So yes, images, it probably is that they're not using proper alt text and title text for their images.
I think that's possibly true, yeah. I have seen failures when it comes to image text and site links recently, so.
It's one of those things that we used to like. Back when Bill and I were at the forums, one thing that forums get is a lot of automated spam. Particularly if you're using popular forum software, somebody will have built a bot that is designed to know that forum, to know exactly where its various scripts are, so it can automatically log in and post. And it runs a search on Google for any site that's got, the text in the footer that it's
powered by IBB, right?
Yeah. So what we did was we swapped that text for an image of that text, and that reduced the spam by about 80%. Just doing that. We were still findable otherwise, but most of those bots, they're just looking for the simplest possible way of recognising. So there are times when you can use that to your advantage. Obviously, there we didn't use alt text because that would have defeated the point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to AdWords. The great things about AdWords, what AdWords is really useful for is, well, one, if you're in something like real estate, you sell properties. AdWords is a way that you can get that property into search results that day, and the instant it sells, take it off again. You cannot do that with organic. You cannot.
I think there's another one with AdWords, especially for Americans, United Kingdom. If you want to use the Google Shop and you've got an e-com store, so that's getting your product images onto the first page of Google. You've got to use AdWords because you can't use Google Shop without it. In fact, more than that, if you've got the ability to install things like dynamic remarketing, you don't even have to think about what you're marketing to who, because the system will start timing how long a customer spends on each product and automatically follow and fill an ad with the product that they spent the most time on. So Google Shopping is a good example of industry e-com that kind of can't live without AdWords.
And you put dynamic retargeting onto the shopping feed, do you?
Yeah, it is cross-network, so you can do it on travel. It went like cross-vertical a year ago, but Google Shopping offers the easiest integration for dynamic remarketing because your product feed is already uploaded to the merchant center.
Yeah.
So it's probably the easiest type of dynamic remarketing you can do.
Okay, thanks.
I do find that a lot of people get remarketing wrong. We have talked about this before, where they're trying to pull people back to their store. Look, somebody went off on a shopping spree that day and bought that day. They didn't come back to your shop because they've bought it. And you sending them an email or reaching out to them in any way to offer them something they've already bought is never going to be a good thing. It's only going to be seen as, you know, stalkerish at best and bloody annoying at
It is, and I agree. And I agree, Ammon, but I've got clients that successfully use it
Yes.
for retargeting, and I thought when they started, oh, this isn't going to work that well. And they generate, I mean, you know, they generate 3 or 4 extra orders a day, but it might just be the type of product. And if it's a considered product, then they may well get a second bite. But if it's low grade, quick grab, yeah, like 50 quid, then they may probably will lose out. But if it's £400 or £500 plus, then they get a good chance on the retarget.
I would say it is one of those ones you do need to look at the consideration time and what point of the buying cycle you're getting into in the first place, and be able to differentiate so that you don't retarget to people who get as far as the cart. Unless it's simply those are the people you reach out to with email. Anybody that gets to your cart and then doesn't convert.
And then
Ammon.
Yeah, go.
Technology. It moves faster than anything. So 2012, those were the kind of problems that everyone had. First month, remarketing's come out, start following people, no one's updating their privacy policies, they don't know what they're doing, bit cowboyish. Now we're in the zone of saying, okay, there's one thing called remarketing, and then you've got demarketing. Whether it be customer emails that are purchased from you, whether it be actions on your site, events, like you said, you know, got to a cart and so on, you have got demarketing. On top of that, all of AdWords impressions went viewable last year. So it's all viewable impressions, and if you add your impression caps in, man, you can set it to stop at 2 impressions a day, 3 impressions, whatever you want really. And if you want to go really deep, banner blindness studies were done from the 90s. So banner blindness is a well-known topic, and if people want to research it and look for the most statistically accurate or most logical impression cap to put in, loads of information out there for them. So you're right, there's a lot of people that do it wrong, but for the people that do it right, there's a lot of power in remarketing. And as Darren said, it works. And when it works, you just start looking at things different.
It is one of those ones where, you know, get an expert in. There are 2 areas, even before SEO. And speaking as an SEO, you know, this is my business. I'm talking down. Before you get an SEO expert, first get an analytics expert to get your reporting right and help you find the KPIs that matter to you, because that will enable you to measure and more accurately measure everything you do from there on. And second is really an AdWords professional, because there is a lot that can go wrong that, you know, an experienced person knows the basics. They can save you thousands in misclicks and misspends because they're able to rule out a lot of things that people would get wrong. And I don't sell either of those. This is, you know, I'm telling you not to hire me straight away, but to hire those, and that's for good reason. It will make your business more successful, which will make you a better client when you do get round to me.
Good point. I agree. I can't disagree with that. And it's true. I think a lot of people shouldn't only get an AdWords expert, but it's business. It's the future. And like you do your own, you clean your own windows sometimes when you're a small business. You clean your own tables. You don't hire cleaners. So with AdWords, you need to have that basic skill of knowing how to set a basic campaign up, measuring it, analytics. I don't know if you guys seen it. They just changed the world with the new User Explorer feature. So have any of you seen this in analytics? It's basically a feature that now combines your sessions across all your devices. So everybody's allocated with a user ID, which is programmed into the cookie. And you can even make that system connect and synchronize with users who log in. So people who know analytics and seeing these changes, man, Google's just making things easier for us. The new 360 suite, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the Hangouts, I've been on them, and they're talking about proper advice in analytics, saying, look, this isn't performing so well, why don't you direct your attention at the social channel, and so on. Crazy stuff. So yeah. I agree with you, man.
It's one of those ones you do have to be careful. This is why I say analytics expert first. You do have to be careful to not get biases in there. These things that track people across sessions, it's only people who are logged in on multiple devices. And the one device they don't log in, it will miss that it's the same person. So you're only getting a viewpoint of a particular kind of person who has a login on all of their devices that can be measured. You know, there is no way of tying somebody from their office PC to their home PC unless they've given the search engine those details.
Man, is Google using audio watermarking yet?
You know what? There's always suspicions because, like, I do, like, a bit off the topic, but on the topic, I know Facebook uses WhatsApp to control their audiences and insight or whatever they know on their intelligence. Google, you know, I think they are. And there was, I think about 7-8 months ago in the Google partner community, somebody shared a patent where Google did protect exactly that, listening to what people say and matching it up to ads.
Yeah, that came out December 31st.
Oh, wow, so was that 7 months ago? I'm quite good.
Can you repeat that? You said Google are listening how?
Android?
Hyper frequencies, high-pitched sounds that maybe your dog could hear, but you won't. Your Android phone could hear it also. And it might be able to tell that you like watched a commercial on TV or heard one on the radio, and it could say, okay, let's give this person a cookie for this product.
100%. And I think what's most interesting about Google is how do they handle the future? Because if everything's going augmented reality, wearable technology, speak to the search engine, how do you trigger an ad? So are they going to now monitor how much you sweat whilst you're doing exercise to know they got to market you sports products? Are they going to, I don't know, there's take pictures of a product somewhere else and now you get ads matched to those pictures? So Google's got a lot to think about and a lot to change in the system to make it friendly to the future, or where I think the future's going, which is augmented reality, right?
We are at the hour. I am going to finish this one on a traditional curmudgeonly note, because these are the patents, these are the research, it's all well and good, but we are talking about the same company that couldn't get Frank's audio right in this exact hangout. So it could be a little while off yet. Audio quality is still very questionable. Under lab conditions for a patent, this all worked brilliantly. Now put it in the real world, and yeah. That's all we have time for this week. Do feel free to jump in the green room where we usually carry on these conversations.